The Kalarian vessel, Stellar Horizon, drifted like a dead fish through the endless darkness of the Void Sector. 3 weeks ago, the ship had been the pride of the Kalarian fleet. Now it was a silent tomb floating among the stars. Captain Veltara pressed her clawed hands against the bridge viewport, watching space debris tumble past like cosmic dice. Life support at 37%. Navigation Officer Kexlan's voice cracked as he spoke. His normally pristine blue feathers were dulled and ruffled from stress. And falling, Captain. The main screen flickered with static. Every few minutes, red warning lights danced across the control panels like dying fireflies. The plasma conduit explosion had torn through the ship's heart, leaving a gaping wound that even their best engineers couldn't fully seal. Status on the distress beacon, Veltara asked, though she already knew the answer. Still transmitting, replied Communications Officer Yeltar. But we're so deep in the void, it's probably just shouting at empty space. Veltara nodded grimly. The Void Sector was the galaxy's graveyard. Ships entered, but never returned. Some said there were strange energy storms that could age metal instantly. Others whispered about creatures made of dark matter that fed on starship hulls. Whatever the truth, no rescue operations entered the void. She walked between the bridge stations, her elongated legs carrying her past consoles that should have been humming with activity. Instead, half the screens were dark. The other half showed graphs trending downward, oxygen levels, power reserves, food supplies, all heading towards zero. Science Officer Zixara looked up from her station. Her large, luminous eyes held the weight of unspoken words. "Should we record final messages, Captain?" The question hung in the recycled air like a death sentence. Around the bridge, the crew's movements slowed. Some stared at their workstations, others looked at their feet. A few gazed at the stars through the viewport, as if searching for answers among the distant suns. Veltara had commanded ships for 27 years. She'd navigated asteroid fields and survived pirate attacks, but this felt different. This felt final. "Yes," she said quietly. "Begin personal recordings. 10 minutes each." The crew began to move toward the recording booths. Veltara watched them go, each one walking like they were underwater. Young engineer Tixmol was barely out of the academy. Navigator Kexlan had 4 hatchlings at home. They all had lives waiting for them somewhere in the known galaxy. As the bridge emptied, Veltara found herself alone with the ship's AI. Stella. "Horizon status report," she commanded. The AI's synthetic voice filled the quiet bridge. Primary systems operating at 19% efficiency. Estimated total system failure in 47 hours. Probability of rescue, 0.001%. Veltara laughed bitterly. "Even the AI thinks we're dead." She activated her personal log. The recording device glowed softly as she began to speak. "Personal log, Captain Veltara, Kalarian Fleet. Stardate. Does it matter? We are lost in the Void Sector. If anyone finds this, know that we fought to survive. Our families," her voice caught. "Take care of our families." The recording paused as she gathered herself. Around her, the ship groaned like a living thing in pain. Metal stressed by radiation and temperature swings created an eerie symphony of creaks and pops. She stood and walked to the star charts display. The void glowed red on the map, a warning to all who would pass through. Yet here they were, trapped in its belly. Why did we chance it? She wondered aloud. Their mission had been to study rare cosmic phenomena only found in hazardous regions. The data they'd collected could have changed galactic science. Now it would die with them. A distant rumble shook the ship. In the engine room, something important had probably just broken. The AI confirmed her fear with another cheerful status update about declining system integrity. Veltara returned to the captain's chair and closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw her home world, the crystal cities of Kalaria floating above seas, of liquid mercury. She thought of the farewell ceremony when they'd left port. Her mate had given her a traditional blessing. May the stars guide you home. The irony wasn't lost on her. The stars had guided them here, to die alone in the dark. The proximity alarm chirped. Veltara's eyes snapped open. The navigation display showed a faint energy signature approaching. Her hearts began racing. Calarians had dual circulatory systems, and both were now pumping hard. "Kexlan," she called, "get back here!" The navigator rushed onto the bridge, still wiping tears from his work on the recording booth. "Captain, contact on sensors, bearing 77 Mark III. They watched the dot on the screen growing larger, moving with purpose toward their position. But something was wrong. The energy signature didn't match any known ship design in the Galactic database, Captain, Kexlan said slowly. "That's not a Calarian ship, not Valtharian either, or Zenthari. Then what is it?" The unknown vessel continued its approach, steady and sure, ignoring all the dangers that had killed so many others in the void. As it drew closer, long-range sensors began picking up details. "It's crude," Zixara reported, rushing back to her station. "Simple metal hull, fusion engines, very primitive." "Primitive but alive," Veltara whispered, watching their salvation grow from a dot to a shape. "Someone actually came." The comm system crackled to life. Her voice spoke in accented Standard Galactic. "Unknown vessel, this is the human ship, Iron Resolve. We're responding to your distress signal." Minho wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive alien vessel floating ahead of them. The Calarian ship looked like a wounded giant. Sleek crystal panels cracked, elegant curves scarred by micrometeorite impacts and radiation burns. "Scan complete, Captain." "It's definitely Calarian, and it's dead in the water," Minho reported. From his sensor station, his fingers danced across the console, pulling up more data. "Hull integrity at 68%. I'm reading multiple breaches, and their main reactor is cold." Captain Jae-hyun leaned forward in his command chair, studying the images on the main screen. The Iron Resolve was small compared to the alien craft, like a tugboat next to a luxury yacht. But their ugly utilitarian ship was alive and moving, while the beautiful Calarian vessel drifted helplessly. "That's the third dead stick we've found this month," Jae-hyun murmured. He stood and walked to the viewport. "Prepping for contact. Communications. Open a channel." "Sir?" Engineer Kyung-soo spoke up from the back of the bridge. His hands were already covered in engine grease from their last repair job. "Their technology is decades ahead of ours. What if we can't help?" Pilot Yujin snorted from her station. "Remember what happened with that Zenthari cruiser last week? They said their engine was impossible to fix too." "That's different," protested systems specialist Jin Soo. "We knew Zenthari tech. These Calarians build ships like they're making jewelry, all crystals and energy matrices. Our tools probably look like hammers to them." Jae-hyun smiled. "Then we'll learn something trying." He nodded to Minho. Open comms. The communications array crackled to life. When Jae-hyun spoke, his voice carried across the void between the ships. "Unknown vessel. This is the human ship, Iron Resolve. We're responding to your distress signal." Silence stretched between them. Then the reply came, clear but heavily accented. "Human vessel, you came into the void? We thought your species avoided dangerous sectors." Several crew members exchanged glances. It was true. Most species gave the void a wide berth. The region was notorious for energy storms, gravitational anomalies, and worse things that lived in deep space. "Dangerous is where people need help the most," Jae-hyun said simply. Through the ship's speakers, they could hear muffled alien voices discussing in rapid Calarian. Finally, the captain replied, "This is Captain Veltara of the Stellar Horizon. Human Captain, your arrival is unexpected. We have been stranded for 3 weeks. Security Chief Dae-hyun whistled low. 3 weeks in the void. They're lucky to be alive. What's your situation, Captain Veltara? Jae-hyun asked. Catastrophic plasma conduit failure, came the response. Life support failing. We estimate less than 2 days of breathable atmosphere remaining, but human captain, we must warn you. Our technology is incompatible with yours. We cannot see how you can assist. Medical Officer Sung-min looked up from where she was preparing emergency supplies. 2 days. That's not much time. Jae-hyun held up a hand for quiet. Captain Veltara, we'll be the judge of what we can fix. Preparing to come alongside for inspection. We do not understand. You would risk your own ship for aliens? Navigation Officer Yunji grinned. Should I tell her about the time we saved those Grex miners from their collapsed asteroid facility, or when we towed that Vorthak freighter? How do that neutron star's gravity well? Let's just show her what humans can do, Jae-hyun replied. The Iron Resolve moved closer to the alien vessel with practiced precision. Through the viewports, they could see the elegant Kalarian ship in detail. Its hull was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with faint inner light, or had before the damage. Look at that engineering, breathed Kyung-soo. Those conduits are grown, not built, like living crystal. And that's our way in, said Maintenance Chief Hak-jin, joining them at the viewport. Living systems can be tricked into healing themselves if you know how to encourage them. Jae-hyun activated the comm again. Captain Veltara, we're preparing. A boarding party. We'll need access to your engineering deck. Human captain, I must protest. The Void Sector has claimed countless ships. You should leave while you can. Save yourselves. Ma'am, interrupted Engineer So-young, who had just arrived on the bridge with her toolkit. I've been studying your ship's design for the past 10 minutes. I think I see what went wrong with your plasma conduits. Jae-hyun smiled. Captain Veltara, we're not leaving anyone behind. That's not what humans do. Another long pause. When the Kalarian captain spoke again, her voice held something like wonder. In all my years of space travel, I have never encountered such determination. Very well, human captain. Docking Bay 7 is operational. We will await your arrival. As E. The boarding party assembled. Pilot Yujin shook her head in amusement. Every time we do this, I think we've seen it all. Then we find another impossible situation that somehow becomes possible. That's the human way, replied Dae-hyun, checking his sidearm. Other species look at problems and see barriers. We look at them and see puzzles waiting to be solved. The Iron Resolve extended its boarding tube toward the Kalarian ship. Soon 12 humans would enter a vessel designed by one of the galaxy's most advanced species, armed with nothing but determination, curiosity, and a toolbox full of primitive equipment. Ready, Captain, reported So-young. Jae-hyun nodded. Let's go save some lives. Navigator Seung-min's hands moved like a pianist's across the pod controls, threading the boarding tube through a field of spinning debris. Docking in 30 seconds, he announced, sweat beading on his forehead. The Kalarian ship loomed larger as they approached, its hull a patchwork of glowing panels and darkened scars. Medic Hyo-jin finished checking her equipment for the third time. Her medical kit looked like an antique beside the sleek alien vessel, but she knew every tool inside could save a life. Remember, she told the boarding party, their blood is copper-based. If anyone's injured, expect blue-green fluid, not red. Engineer So-young cracked her knuckles and grinned. Let's see what these crystal builders have broken. The boarding tube sealed with a hiss. Through the airlock window they could see the Kalarian docking bay, a cavern of smooth walls that seemed to glow from within. When the inner door opened, they stepped into an alien world. The gravity was lighter than Earth normal, making them bounce slightly with each step. The air smelled of ozone and something floral. And everywhere the walls pulsed with soft bioluminescent light. Captain Veltara waited for them at the entrance, flanked by 2 of her officers. She was tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to shift between blue and silver depending on the light. Her large eyes fixed on the humans with a mixture of hope and curiosity. Welcome aboard the Stellar Horizon, she said in careful standard. I am surprised by your appearance. The humans looked rough in comparison. Their environment suits were bulky and utilitarian, covered in patches and external equipment packs. They carried heavy toolboxes and wore headlamps like old-style miners. Ma'am? Hyo-jin nodded respectfully, then wrinkled her nose. I'm detecting some atmospheric problems. Oxygen concentration is dropping. Emergency seals are holding barely, So-young reported, running a handheld scanner over the nearest bulkhead. But this quantum matrix is completely fried, she pointed, to what looked like a shattered crystal tree growing from the ceiling. How did this happen? Science Officer Zixara stepped forward. The plasma conduit overloaded during a radiation storm. The matrix couldn't contain the energy feedback. So-young nodded thoughtfully, then surprised everyone by pulling out what looked like a roll of metallic tape and some copper wire from her toolkit. She began attaching these crude materials to the broken crystal structure. What are you doing? Veltara asked, alarmed. "Fixing it," So Young replied casually. She pulled out a device that looked like a glorified wrench with blinking lights. "See, your quantum matrix is like a neural network. It needs pathways to route power. When the main channels broke, the system couldn't adapt. Systems specialist Il Sung set up a portable generator nearby. In human engineering, we call this jury rigging. It's not pretty, but it works." "This is impossible," Zixara whispered, watching So Young wrap common metal wire around alien crystals. "They're mixing incompatible technologies. Those materials don't even exist in the same technological paradigm." Engineer So Young looked up with a grease-stained smile. "Sometimes impossible is just another word for not done yet." She connected her improvised bypass to a crude-looking device that sparked and hummed. The Kalarians stepped back nervously, but the humans pressed forward. "Yuji, give me some magnetic resonance from your scanner," So Young called. "Il Sung, I need you to pulse that generator in 3-second intervals." The humans worked like a practiced orchestra. Where the Kalarians saw precision instruments, the humans saw components to be repurposed. They used their scanner's magnetic field as a catalyst, turned their generator into a pulse driver, and somehow convinced the alien crystals to accept pathways made of basic metals. Sparks flew. Alarms chirped. The Kalarians watched in fascination and horror as the humans performed what could only be described as technological magic. "It's responding!" Zixara exclaimed, staring at her readings. "The quantum field is stabilizing." "But how?" Security Chief Dae Hyun, who had been standing guard, grinned. "Ma'am, you haven't seen anything yet. Wait until they start using duct tape." Within hours, the improvised repairs began showing results. Lights flickered on in sections that had been dark. Air circulation resumed with a sound like sighing, the key. Ship's death rattle became a steady heartbeat. Main power flickered back to life. The Kalarians stared in amazement as their ship came alive around them. Emergency lighting shifted to normal illumination. Stations that had been offline for weeks began displaying data again. "Impossible," Veltara breathed. "Our best engineers said the damage was irreparable without a complete matrix replacement. Maintenance." Chief Hakjin looked up from where he was installing another bypass. "Well, ma'am, sometimes the best solution isn't the most elegant one. Sometimes it's just the one that works." Pilot Yujin walked past carrying an armload of human equipment. "Besides, if something's worth saving, we'll find a way to save it. That's what humans do." As the stellar horizon continued to recover, the Kalarians found themselves witnessing something unprecedented. The galaxy's most primitive spacefaring species, breathing life back into advanced alien technology, using nothing but determination, creativity, and an impressive collection of improvised tools. In the ship's restored main corridor, Captain Veltara turned to So Young. "How did you know it would work?" The human engineer shrugged, wiping her hands on her coveralls. "I didn't, but I figured it was worth trying. In my experience, the universe has a sense of humor about things labeled impossible." As repairs continued, Veltara found herself on the human ship, floating in their common area. The artificial gravity felt strange, heavier than she was used. To Captain Jae-hyun sat across from her at a utilitarian metal table, sharing a meal of something called kimchi. The red pungent vegetable burned her tongue and made her eyes water. "It's fermented," Jae-hyun explained, noticing her expression. "We preserve food by letting it rot in a controlled way." Veltara blinked her large eyes. "You deliberately spoil your food." "Best spoiled food in the galaxy," laughed Engineer So Young, grabbing a bowl before heading back to work. "My grandmother's recipe." The human ship was cramped and cluttered. Tools hung from magnetic strips on every wall. Cables and pipes ran exposed along the ceiling. It looked more like a mining platform than a rescue vessel. "Your ship's database shows dozens of rescue operations in hazardous sectors," Veltara noted, studying the display screens around them. One showed a map dotted with red dots, each marking a dangerous zone or failed ship. "Other species consider these zones off-limits," Jae-hyun shrugged, taking another bite of kimchi. "Someone has to look out for the people everyone else has written off. That's what humans do." "But the risk." "Everything has risk," interrupted Pilot Danby, floating down from the upper level with practiced ease. She grabbed the ceiling rail and swung into a chair. The trick is not avoiding it, but learning to dance with it. Veltara watched these creatures who seemed comfortable with chaos. Around them, the ship hummed with activity. Humans drifted through narrow passages, their movements casual, despite being surrounded by equipment that could kill them if mishandled. "We've been monitoring distress calls in the void for 6 months, Jae-hyun explained. Yours was the 4th we've answered. The others all made it home safely." 6 months. Veltara was astounded. "You've spent 6 months in the void sector? But the radiation, the gravity distortions..." Medical Officer Hyo-jin floated past with a medical scanner in hand. "We've gotten good at dodging the worst parts, and what we can't dodge we've learned to shield against." "Your shields are primitive," Veltara said, then immediately regretted the bluntness. "True," agreed Navigation Officer Seong-min, not seeming offended. "But they work. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." Veltara looked around the common area. The walls were covered with photos and drawings. She saw images of alien worlds, human families, and successful rescue operations. One photo showed a massive Vorthak freighter being towed to safety, its bulk dwarfing the tiny human vessel pulling it. "Why do you collect these images?" she asked. "Reminders," said systems specialist Il-sung, pausing his diagnostics to look at the photos with her. "Every ship we've saved, every crew that made it home, makes the dangerous parts worth it." Engineer So-young returned, her coveralls even more stained than before. "Captain, I've got good news and weird news. The good news is that your ship's primary systems are responding better than expected." "And the weird news?" Veltara asked. "Your quantum matrix is actually improving. It's like our crude repairs are teaching it to route around damage more efficiently." Veltara's head spun. "That should be impossible. Quantum matrices don't learn or adapt." "Maybe yours didn't," So-young grinned, but with a little push in the right direction, Security Chief Dae-hyun entered the common area, carrying a report pad. "Captain, we're picking up another distress signal. Grid reference Gamma 7. "That's deep void," Danby observed, checking her star charts. "Really deep." "Plot a course," Jae-hyun ordered without hesitation. Veltara stood abruptly. "You cannot be serious. You've just performed a miracle here. Why risk another impossible rescue?" The humans exchanged glances. Then Jae-hyun smiled, because someone's out there, alone, probably thinking no one cares enough to find them. "Like we were," added Navigator Seung-min. "But what about us?" "Our repairs aren't complete. Your ship is stable," So-young assured her. "And honestly, following us might be safer than staying here alone." Veltara felt a strange sensation in her chest, something between admiration and terror. These beings lived in the spaces between common sense and suicide, finding success where others found only death. "In Kalarian culture," she said slowly, "we have a saying, 'Only fools rush toward danger.'" Engineer So-young laughed. "My grandmother used to say, 'Fortune favors the foolish.' Maybe the universe belongs to those brave enough to look foolish." As the ships prepared to venture deeper into the void, Veltara found herself understanding something profound. The humans weren't rescuing ships despite their primitive technology. They were succeeding because of their primitive approach. Where other species saw insurmountable technical problems, humans saw puzzles to solve with creativity and determination. "Captain, Jae-hyun," she said as the engines began to hum, "I believe my people have much to learn from yours." "And we from you," he replied. "That's what makes the universe interesting." Through the viewport, Veltara watched the stars begin to move as both ships turned toward the unknown distress signal. For the first time in weeks, she felt something she'd thought lost forever: hope. The stellar horizon pulsed with new life, as its engines hummed with efficient hybrid technology the humans had improvised. Captain Veltara stood on her bridge, watching diagnostic displays that showed systems working better than they had in years. Somehow, the crude human repairs had improved her ship's performance. "Incredible," Science Officer Zixara muttered, staring at her readings. "Our quantum matrix is routing power at 97% efficiency. That's impossible with traditional technology." "Impossible seems to be the human specialty," Veltara replied, watching the human ship Iron Resolve floating nearby in the starfield. As both crews prepared for departure, Veltara activated the comm channel to the human vessel. Captain Jae-hyun, by the ancient laws of Kalarian honor, I must offer compensation for saving our lives. The response came through clearly. Captain Veltara, we appreciate the offer, but we don't need payment. Veltara blinked her large eyes in surprise. Every species in the known galaxy expected payment for services rendered. But surely there is something we can provide. Actually, yes, Jae-hyun's voice carried a hint of excitement. I could use detailed charts of sectors your people avoid. There might be more folks out there who need help. Through the comm channel, she heard Communications Officer Yu-jin laugh in the background. The more dangerous the location, the more interesting the challenge. Veltara authorized the transfer of Kalarian navigation data, star charts marking regions deemed too dangerous for any sane captain to enter. As the information flowed between their ships, she watched human crew members gathering around displays, pointing excitedly at the most hazardous zones. They're planning routes through the Crimson Nebula, Navigator Kexlan observed with disbelief. No ship has ever returned from there, and they're marking the Ghost Sector as a priority destination, added Zixara. That region consumes ships, like a living thing. Veltara stood silent, watching the human vessel prepare for departure. Its hull bore the scars of countless missions, patches upon patches telling stories of narrow escapes and impossible victories. The humans moved around their ship with casual confidence, as if danger was just another work assignment. Captain, Engineer So Young's voice came through the comm. We've shared some of our repair techniques with your crew. Your ship should be able to self-repair minor damage now. It's all in the data package we transferred. Thank you, Veltara replied. Where will you go now? Follow that distress signal we mentioned, Captain Jae-hyun answered. Someone needs help, and that's what we do. The human ship began to move, its engines glowing brighter. Veltara watched as it turned not toward the nearest inhabited system, but deeper into the void sector's unmapped regions. They're heading into Sector X9, Kexlan reported, his voice tight with concern. Even our bravest explorers won't go there. Veltara watched the human ship disappear into hyperspace, headed not toward civilization, but deeper into unmapped danger zones. Her heart beat with an emotion she hadn't felt in decades, envy. For the first time in her career, she was envious of another species' courage. Set course for Kalarian space, she ordered reluctantly. The journey home gave her time to think. The humans had saved them using technology that shouldn't work, fixed problems labeled impossible, and refused payment for risking their lives. They were everything Kalarian culture taught was foolish, yet they succeeded where others failed. Back. At Kalarian Command, the crystal spires of the capital world gleamed in the light of twin suns. Veltara stood before the High Council. Being so old, they remembered the first wars between species, their wisdom evident in their ancient eyes. Your report is unusual, Captain, High Councillor Velmiran said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. You claim these humans saved you using primitive technology? More than saved us, Honored One. They improved our ship, made it better than it was before the damage. And they asked for nothing but star charts to dangerous regions. They plan to rescue others that we've written off as lost. The council chamber fell silent. These beings had seen empires rise and fall, witnessed species evolve and go extinct. But the story of humans diving into death to save strangers seemed to genuinely surprise them. What do you recommend, Captain? Asked Councillor Yeltana. Veltara took a deep breath. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact with human rescue operations. They may be primitive, but they go where we dare not. The galaxy needs more of what humans call reckless bravery. The High Councillor leaned forward. You would have us work with these Chaos Weavers? I would have us learn from them, Veltara replied firmly. They showed me that sometimes the impossible is just another word for not tried yet. 6 months later, the first joint Kalarian human rescue flotilla launched. The ships were hybrid designs, combining Kalarian elegance with human practicality. Veltara commanded the lead vessel, its crew mixed species working together. In the depths of space, Distress signals no longer went unanswered. The galaxy had learned that some humans considered impossible to be just another challenge to overcome. The end.